Listen, this is probably the most dangerous motion that I've debated anywhere since I used to debate against IRA supporters in the 1980s and 1990s. Because the arguments for keeping our blasphemy laws are not only silly and misguided, but in the case of this particular motion are dangerous. If this motion had said, in light of the Irish Constitution's claim that all authority comes from the Holy Trinity and that the honour of public worship is due to Almighty God, that we support Ireland's blasphemy law, then it would be a silly motion. And the reason that it would be silly is because even if this universe of 100 billion galaxies was created by a conscious being, the idea that that being would need his feelings protected by the members of Dáil Éireann seems a little optimistic. Pope Francis said recently, as we've heard, that you can't make fun of faith, which is of course just silly. Of course you can make fun of faith. You know, faith is believing things disproportionate to the evidence, and ridiculing faith is a good way of making people rethink believing things disproportionately to the evidence. David Icke's belief that he's God and that President George Bush is an alien space lizard is a ridiculous belief. Yeah, there's no more ridiculous than the idea that the creator of the universe impregnated a human virgin on the planet Earth in order to give birth to himself and then be tortured and die and come back to life and write a book about it. They're all equally ridiculous beliefs. But because mainstream religions consider secular religions, cults, one set of beliefs is considered protectable. The reason that many religious beliefs need protection from ridicule is because they are ridiculous. And if they weren't ridiculous, they could withstand reasonable analysis, they wouldn't need this artificial protection. You know, people who have non-religious, say, scientific beliefs don't worry about people laughing at the law of gravity because they know that the law of gravity isn't going to change depending on whether people laugh at it. The other thing that the Pope said is that you can't insult other people's faith and beliefs. But if you reverse that, the Pope and indeed Islam are quite happy to be offensive and abusive to beliefs, not only beliefs that are important to others, but to actual other people who hold those beliefs. And if you take, for example, you know, the Christian Bible says that Jews are of their fault by the devil. The Catholic Church says that homosexuality is an objective disorder. Cardinal Cormac Murphy O'Connor has said that atheists are not fully human. The Quran says that husbands can beat their wives in certain circumstances. It says that women can inherit half of what a man can inherit, that in certain circumstances a woman's evidence is worth half of that of a man. All of those are equally offensive to me as whatever I might say about religious beliefs are offensive to religious people. And so if religious people feel that they can be insulting and abusive to other people's beliefs, then there's no reason why their beliefs should have a particularly special position. And we can protect individuals through our existing laws. The Irish Attorney General has already told the Venice Commission that our incitement to hatred laws are sufficient to protect people in the way that you're talking about from incitement to hatred or harm. And the international human rights law makes a clear distinction between protecting individuals from harm and protecting their beliefs from ridicule. But what this motion says is, it says, in light of the Charlie Hebdo massacre, we support Ireland's blasphemy laws. And so that's neither silly nor misguided. In fact, it's both, but it's also dangerous. Like, it's based on the spirit of that saying from the old Wild West in America, that the final rule of poker is that a Smith & Wesson revolver beats 4 aces. And essentially what it's saying is that no matter how strong your arguments are, whether they're intellectual or whether they're based on ridicule, if you disagree, we'll shoot you. You know, and no ethical democracy can function on the basis of giving in to terrorism. That's what this motion is saying, is that in light of a terrorist act, we should give in to what the terrorists want. And don't think for a moment that maintaining blasphemy laws will protect people from these Islamic attacks, because the vast majority of people that are killed or beaten on the basis of these of alleged blasphemy are in Islamic countries where obviously they have blasphemy laws. If you look at Pakistan, where Asia Bibi, a Christian mother, is facing execution at the moment for blasphemy, 2 politicians who spoke out in her favour have been executed, one by his own bodyguard. In Saudi Arabia, Raf Badawi is facing 10 years in jail and 1,000 lashes for writing on a blog. After the Danish cartoons, all the attacks were in countries that had blasphemy laws. And they were organised violence. It wasn't just spontaneous. It's not credible to think that the entire Muslim population of the Middle East have an inexhaustible supply of Danish flags at home to bring out and burn. No, this is organised violence intended to change Western society and to impose things in their own societies. And Pakistan is significant because it has said at the United Nations, it has cited the Irish blasphemy law to defend their practices of blasphemy laws and apostasy laws in their own countries. It is said here is a Western democracy passing a new blasphemy law in the 21st century, and so what is wrong with our blasphemy laws? So I'll just summarise by saying that you have rights, your beliefs don't have rights. We shouldn't be able to cause harm to actual people, but we should be able to ridicule their beliefs if we choose to do so. And blasphemy laws are silly, misguided and dangerous, and we shouldn't give in to terrorism, and on that basis I urge you to oppose the motion. Thank you very much.
Now, with regard to the cartoon, you were saying the intention of that cartoon was to offend Muslims because it was representing their prophet, and it was potentially, the second one that I hadn't really particularly thought of is the idea of representing him as being a gay man, which is insulting to certain branches of Islam. And
the cartoons in Charlie Hebdo, let's remember that they're not intended to offend Muslims. They're intended to ridicule Islam, the beliefs, not the people. Charlie Hebdo regularly has cartoons satirising the French government and the police for their anti-immigrant positions. Charlie Hebdo is a very strong pro-Muslim, pro-immigrant publication. It has a cartoon that was supposedly decried by people who know nothing about the publication for being racist, for picturing a French politician as a monkey. But what that cartoon is it was responding to the National Front comparing that woman to a monkey, and it was associating that image with their logo and their party slogan. So if you look at what Charlie Hebdo is doing, it is making the distinction that international human rights law also makes, which is it is legitimate to attack beliefs, no matter how dearly they're held by people, in the same way as it's legitimate for the Quran to publish things that I find offensive. That's not my offence at what's in the Quran or the Bible isn't sufficient for them to be legally banned, but it is not attacking the individuals or causing harm to the individuals.
Which then, for example, for Islam to produce a booklet talking about how homosexuals are disgusting and should be wiped off the face of the planet, that should also be not okay.
The distinction is that this is a law society. This issue has been fairly settled in international human rights law. There's a distinction between things that are harmful to people and things that are harmful to their beliefs. And everything from the United Nations Human Rights Committee to the Venice Commission, which advises countries on constitutional law, have weighed up that the balance between freedom of expression and freedom of religion, and have come to that conclusion that incitement to hatred against individuals is a legitimate thing for laws to do, but protecting their feelings, their religious feelings, no matter how dear to them, is not a legitimate restriction on freedom of expression.
Notice as well, by the way, and this is just a misunderstanding of the debate, blasphemy laws do not exist as a right of private action for any litigious party. Like if Michael says, or if somebody says people of faith are morons, and then a person of faith can't say, hang on, I'm offended, I'm going to go to court and sue you. It doesn't work like that. It's at the discretion of a public prosecutor. So that's the first part. So like that's a removal of the subjective part of this, first of all.
The first test in our law is that, which is a subjective test, is that people have to show outrage. It's thereby causing outrage among a substantial number of peers.
Yeah.
So what our law does is it incentivises outrage when we should be incentivising people to behave more responsibly and proportionately.
One thing to keep in mind is that the background reason why all this happens is because the US and the West have destroyed a country, right? Iraq, right? They're supporting Israel for like decades, and that pisses off people in the Middle East. Does that justify bombing Charlie Hebdo? Of course not, but it gives you the context for that.
Very quick point of information: Christians and Muslims have been butchering each other for centuries before the United States even existed.
This is completely